Welcome to the 1-2 Tempo Us podcast. I'm your host, Dave Tainer. Story, lesson, application. Now we're going to go at things a little bit different today. We're going to talk football, but I'm going to put my analyst hat on and probably piss off a few Ohio State fans along the way, which is interesting considering I'm one of them. I've coached college football for a long time, and the reality is I don't really consider myself a fan of very many football teams anymore. I watch football too much like a coach. I watch personnel, I watch numbers, I watch leverage, I watch matchups. I'm looking at why somebody did something instead of just watching what happened. Everything becomes process driven. Don't misunderstand me. I care about the outcome. But while everybody else is celebrating or cussing the outcome, I'm usually running the analytics in my head trying to figure out why the hell did that just happen? Ohio State is probably the exception to that, though. I've spent my share of time celebrating and cussing the outcomes. I'm a true Buckeye fan. I grew up in Columbus, Ohio. Ohio State football has always been a passion for me. One of my first vivid memories as a fan was in 1984. Keith Byers lost his shoe while running about a 70-yard touchdown in a game against the University of Illinois. He lost his shoe and he just kept running. It's burned into my brain. But apparently, even with the Buckeyes, I didn't know how to just be a damn fan. And I think I finally accepted that in 2016. Our season at Lock Haven University had just ended, and my good friend and former teammate, Rich Newsom, got us tickets to Ohio State, Michigan. And this wasn't just any Ohio State-Michigan game. They're all important. But this one was an epic Ohio State-Michigan game. Number 2 Ohio State versus number 3 Michigan. Ohio Stadium at the Horseshoe, double overtime. The controversy surrounded J.T. Barrett's fourth down play, Curtis Samuel's touchdown. It was an absolute madhouse. One of the biggest games in the history of the rivalry. And I'm still sitting there at this game incredibly pissed off because everybody around me is watching the Ohio State-Michigan game. I'm watching the box. And I'm thinking, what the hell are we doing? Ohio State is playing no-huddle football. They're getting to the line. Michigan is giving them bad numbers at the point of attack, bad numbers to run the ball, bad numbers in the direction they're going, and Ohio State is consistently not getting themselves out of a bad play. They're just running into bad numbers, over and over and over again. Now, maybe this is where being a coach ruins being a fan, because I'm sitting there in Ohio State Stadium doing exactly what I would be doing on the sideline at every university or high school that I've coached at, counting the box. What's the potential blocking surface? How many blockers do they potentially have? Where are the extra defenders? If the quarterback hands the football off to the running back, there's 2 bodies on defense that can't be accounted for. Where are those 2 bodies at? And what's our answer when we locate them? If we're going to throw the ball, where does the defense distribute its resources? Because that's really what defense is. It's resource allocation. If you're playing a base zone, which in my mind, that means you're dropping 7, right? Rushing 4. Those 7 defenders have to be distributed somewhere. Take something as basic as cover 3. There's 3 over and over coverage, 4 under and under coverage. If I release 5 eligible receivers, I've got to figure out how you're allocating those 7 defenders and then manipulate that allocation. Make them move their pieces someplace we don't want them to be. Can I use spacing and action to separate the under coverage from the over coverage? Can I manipulate the 4 underneath defenders and attack it with 5 eligibles? Can I create 4 against 3 against the deep structure? Basically, where did you spend your defensive resources and what did that leave me in return? That's football. You can't defend everything equally. So every defensive structure gives offense information. And every offensive structure provides the defense with information. The game is constantly talking to you. The question is whether you're willing to listen. So now I'll digress before this becomes a clinic on cover 3 or how to attack it, because the bottom line was this. Ohio State and Michigan were the number 2 and number 3 teams in the country. And offensively, at times, neither one of them seemed particularly interested in taking the answers the defense was giving them. It was an epic football game, but it was an epic offensive disaster. Honestly, made me want to vomit. And I remember thinking about our own season that year at Lock Haven in 2016. We had just produced the best offense in university history. We played 11 games, and I'm not exaggerating when I say we probably ran the football into bad numbers 5 times the entire season. 5, maybe. And I'm sitting there in Ohio State Stadium watching Ohio State and Michigan do it more times in one afternoon than we'd done it in an entire damn season. Now, let me be clear. I'm sitting in the stands. Okay? Urban Meyer is standing on the sideline. The man has won national championships. He's forgotten more football than most people will ever know. So I'm not sitting there thinking Dave Tainer knows more than Urban Meyer does. That's stupid. Right? Wouldn't say that. But you could feel sitting there Meyer's frustration with that offense, from the play calling to the operation of it. And as I was sitting there, I was thinking, what the fuck is really going on? Now, Ed Warner was coordinating the offense at the time. And whether it was the structure, the communication, the decision-making, or some combination of all three, something clearly wasn't functioning at the level you'd expect from Ohio State. Because Michigan was showing them something. They were giving them information. And instead of consistently taking that information and using it against Michigan, it felt like Ohio State was saying, nah, this is just what we're going to do, and we're going to prove we can do it. That stubbornness fascinates me a little bit. Because there's a difference between being committed to an identity and being stubborn about a method. And while I'm sitting there obsessing about the box, something else was catching my attention, the sidelines. Urban is standing down there near the numbers. Damn near looked like he's ready to get into the play. I'd have gotten flagged so damn quick on our sidelines, probably ejected from where he was standing. But he was standing out there. His feet were spread. He had one hand on a knee. His head was down, and he was windmilling the play in, which said to me, there's something going on with the communication process that's terribly out of line. And the more difficult the game became, the more frantic things seemed to become. Then I looked across the field shortly thereafter, and Jim Harbaugh's having his own damn adventure. Headsets are tangled around his play sheet and around his arms. Game plan sheet goes flying in the air. He throws it in the air. He seems like he's some gyrating anime meme of a football coach in khakis. Equipment interns got to run around and retrieve all the shit. Emotion was everywhere. And again, 2 incredibly accomplished football coaches. 2 guys whose resumes speak for themselves. But I'm sitting in the stadium, and all I was thinking, why does leadership have to become theater when things aren't going our way? I've never truly understood that. Something goes wrong, and suddenly everybody has to look like they're doing more. We've got to yell louder, gesture louder. Everybody has to coach intensely to say, I'm trying to fix the problem. Well, you know what? As a head football coach, get the problem fixed. If your assistants are fucking it up, that's on you too. That's on you. You own it. Sorry about your luck. Heavy is the head that wears the crown. But sometimes the problem doesn't need more emotion. Sometimes it doesn't need more effort. Sometimes you just need to look at the damn picture in front of you and take the answer it's giving you. But here's the thing. The sideline bullshit isn't exactly why I'm telling you the story. It's the stubbornness that was going on. That's the part that stayed with me. Because sometimes the answer is sitting right in front of us, and our ego won't let us take it. We become so invested in proving that our way works that we stop asking whether there's a better way to win. And that's not an Urban Meyer problem. That's not a Jim Harbaugh problem. That's not even really a football problem. That's a leadership problem. And I've been guilty of it. Every coach who's done this long enough has been guilty of it. We fall in love with our system, our philosophy, our answer. This is the way we do things. And sometimes we become so committed to proving our method right that we actually make it harder for our people to be successful. And that brings me to the idea I've been wrestling with watching Ohio State football over the last couple of years. Because, simple thing, if I've got better players than you, I want being better to fucking matter. I want enough opportunities for that advantage to reveal itself, to accumulate, to separate. And I'm damn sure don't want my philosophy to become the thing that prevents my best players from demonstrating why they're better. So here's the principle we're going to work from today. Talent times opportunities equals production separation. It's not a mathematical formula. It's a coaching principle. Talent matters, but talent needs opportunities. And when I possess a talent advantage, I want enough opportunities for that advantage to compound. Because one play can be random. 10 plays begins to tell you something. 80 plays gives talent more opportunities to separate itself. And once you start looking at football that way, I think you have to ask two different questions. The first, how many opportunities are we creating for our advantage to matter? And second, who are we giving the most valuable opportunities to? Those aren't the same question. One is opportunity quantity, and the other is opportunity allocation. And eventually, those two questions are going to take us to Ryan Day and Jeremiah Smith, and something I've believed in for a long damn time. Feed the studs. But first, answer this question. If I've got better players than you, why the hell would I want fewer opportunities for being better to matter? So the other day I was reading an article that popped up by 11 Warriors. And as part of the click-in line, it said, tempo is dead. And apparently, I guess I'm going against the trend here. Because if you listen to Ryan Day, and he's not alone, tempo is dying in college football. Maybe it's dead, already dead. The game has changed. The clock rules have changed. Seasons are longer. Possessions are down. Plays are down. Roster construction is different. And coaches are increasingly talking about college football more like NFL football. Efficiency. And listen, efficiency is important. But here's my first problem with the NFL comparison. College football isn't the NFL. Yes, college football seasons are longer than they used to be. You can play up to 16 games. But the NFL plays 17 regular season games, plus preseason, plus potentially 4 postseason games, and they're doing it with a smaller roster. More importantly, though, the talent distribution isn't remotely the same. NFL football is designed around competitive parity. The Cleveland Browns don't get to play Ball State. Ohio State does. That's not disrespectful to Ball State. That's just reality. The talent disparity that can exist between two college football teams on Saturday is fundamentally different from what exists between two NFL rosters on Sunday. And that matters when we start talking about intentionally reducing the number of opportunities in a game. Because Ryan Day's argument is essentially this: maximize every possession, protect your roster, control the game. Be incredibly efficient with the opportunities you get. This shortens the game. Here's where I want to be fair to Ryan Day. I understand the problem he's trying to solve. I just disagree with the solution. Because if tempo is dead, I've got the fucking shock paddles. I'll bring it back to life. Not because tempo is my identity. Not because I want to prove that I'm smarter than everybody else. And certainly not because I think 90 plays somehow makes you morally superior than running 60. I'll do it for one reason. Because if it helps me beat your ass, I'm doing it. That's the whole point. I've never been particularly interested in doing something because everybody else does it. I've never been successful because I followed the trend. I'm looking for vulnerability inside the trend. So if everybody starts doing the same thing, what does everybody eventually build their roster to do? Defend it. What does everybody practice against? Right? They get comfortable against it. Where does it create an opportunity to make you uncomfortable again? Remember what I just talked about. The game is giving you information. Well, if everybody in college football starts moving in one direction, that's information too. And here's where I think connecting two concepts that don't necessarily have to be connected: tempo and efficiency. Tempo's dead. We're emphasizing efficiency. What the fuck does that mean? Those two terms don't necessarily connect. Efficiency tells me how effectively I use an opportunity. Tempo helps me influence how many opportunities exist. They work synergistically. I want both, especially when I believe my players are better than yours. Think about a singular football play. If I got an All-American receiver, he beats your corner by 3 yards. He's behind everyone. Quarterback puts the ball right on him, and a freak thing happens. He drops it. Ever seen a drop before? It's one opportunity. There was no production. Now, did the talent advantage disappear? Of course not. Variance happened. Maybe it's a missed tackle. Maybe it's a quarterback makes a bad read. Maybe somebody jumps off sides or gets a holding call. Things are going to happen. And if the sample size is smaller, there's a much bigger impact. Football is chaotic. One repetition allows randomness to have enormous influence. Baseball gives us another way, an easy way to understand this as well. Let's say I've got 2 hitters. One goes 2 for 3 in the game. The other goes 1 for 3 in the game. Can you definitively tell me in those 3 at-bats which one is the better hitter? Of course not. The sample is too small. Now stretch it across the series, across 10 games, across 50 games, across the season. Give the better hitter enough at-bats, and eventually talent has enough opportunity to separate. But there's another layer to this. What if I hit my best hitter second in the order instead of 8th or 9th? That's a novel concept. Why do you bat your best hitters at the front of the lineup? Over time, he's going to accumulate more at-bats. I didn't make him more talented. I created more opportunities for his talent to produce separation. Now let's bring it back to football. More opportunities gives you more chances for your receiver to beat their corner. More chances for my offensive line to beat your defensive front. More chances for my quarterback to diagnose your coverage. More chances for better to actually become better on the scoreboard. That's product separation. And we already understand this concept perfectly when we're the team with less talent. What does an underdog want against a substantially more talented football team? Shorten the damn game. And I know that's true because I've done it. In 2009 at Urbana University, we played the University of Dayton. It was a guarantee game. They paid us $10,000 to make the short trip down to Dayton to play them. They were a more talented team than us. They were more experienced. They had better depth. So I didn't walk into that game saying, let's maximize the number of opportunities for Dayton's advantages to show up. Hell no. We intentionally shortened the game. Fewer possessions, fewer snaps. Keep the score compressed. Get the game into the 4th quarter. Because I believed if we could keep it close long enough, we'd have a chance to steal the damn thing late. And I knew that we had something we could take advantage of in the red zone. Train right, 800, Leon. We ran it. 4th quarter. Take the lead, 13-10. Touchdown. And I could still see the Gatorade bath coming. We won the football game. Now think about what we were actually doing strategically. We weren't trying to prove we were more talented than Dayton. We were preventing their talent advantage from having enough opportunities to separate. That's what an underdog does. Turn the game into a smaller sample. Because the fewer opportunities that exist, the greater the possibility that one event changes everything. One turnover, one busted coverage, one special teams play, one 3rd or 4th down stop, one missed field goal. One train right, 800 Leon for us. And now you're in the 4th quarter. You've been hanging around. You're one possession away. That's exactly what the underdog wants, and it happens. So here's my question. If I'm Ohio State, I've recruited one of the most talented rosters in America. I've got future NFL players lined up all across the field. If I possess a substantial talent advantage over most of the teams on my schedule, why the hell would I voluntarily adopt part of the underdog strategy? Why would we help them by shortening the game? Why help them by compressing the sample? Why reduce the opportunities for my advantage to become production? That's where Ryan Day and I philosophically separate. And again, I understand his argument. You're managing bodies. You're managing depth. You've got the best player. You've got to get your best players to November and December, possibly, potentially, should be to January. I understand the problem. I disagree with the solution because I don't necessarily want to preserve Jeremiah Smith by reducing his opportunities throughout 4 quarters. I want to create enough separation early that Jeremiah Smith doesn't have to play for 4 quarters. That's different. Attack early, create opportunities, find the matchup advantage, feed it. Force the defense to allocate resources to stopping it, score. Get the ball back again and do it again. Create separation early in games. And then something really important happens. My starters come stand beside me, because if we're up 35 instead of 17 at the start of the 4th quarters, my starters, they're standing beside me. And my young players aren't standing beside me. They're playing football. Today's studs get fewer meaningless late game repetitions. Tomorrow's studs get meaningful developmental repetitions. That's roster development. That's how the freshman finally gets to diagnose somebody else's defense. That's how young offensive linemen get meaningful game snaps. That's how your backup quarterback learns to operate the offense when the scoreboard is actually on. And across the season, those reps compound too. 5 snaps here, 10 snaps there, 20 snaps here. By November, some of those young players aren't really inexperienced anymore. They've played football. So tempo isn't just potentially a scoring tool. It can become a roster development tool. Create separation early, protect your elite players late. Develop your next group while you're doing it. But understand something. I'm not advocating tempo as a religion in football. This is where football coaches get themselves into trouble. They turn methods into identities. We're a tempo team. We're a no-huddle team. We're a wing T team. We're a ball control team. We're a physical team. I don't give a shit what you are. Those are methods. My identity is much simpler. I want to do what I need to do in order to give our players the best opportunity to go and win on Saturday. When slowing the game down gave Urbana the best chance to beat Dayton, I slowed the damn game down. I'd do it again tomorrow if that's what gives us the advantage. But if snapping the ball with 30 seconds on the play clock prevents you from substituting, keeps your defense vanilla, prevents your coordinator from making the perfect call, exposes a matchup, and creates 15 additional opportunities for my better players to beat yours, then you better get your ass lined up, because we're coming. Maybe tempo isn't fashionable anymore, but I don't care what's fashionable. I care what creates an advantage. And if the entire sport starts moving towards slower football, eventually there may be an advantage in being capable of doing something everybody else has stopped preparing to defend. That's not nostalgia. That's competitive differentiation. If I've got better players than you, I want more chances for being better to matter. But creating more opportunities isn't enough. You can create 85 opportunities and still spend them stupidly. And if you want a perfect example of that type of opportunity allocation, go back to the Ohio State-Michigan game in 2024. Ohio State entered that game with the better football team. Anyone who watched college football knew it. There was more talent, more weapons, more places where Michigan should have been forced to defend Ohio State's advantages. But Michigan had an advantage too, and it was significant. Their interior defensive line. Mason Graham was one of the best defensive tackles in college football. Kenneth Grant wasn't far behind him and was right beside him. That was the strength of Michigan's defense. And Ohio State spent a remarkable amount of time that afternoon trying to prove they could run the football directly at it. Now, I understand the psychology. It's Ohio State, Michigan. Historically, the team that wins the running battle wins the rivalry. Not in this case. Ryan Day and the Buckeyes had lost 3 straight, and they'd heard all the talk about toughness, physicality, Michigan pushing Ohio State around. Eventually, the game stops becoming just a football game. It becomes an argument you're trying to win. We're going to prove we're tougher. We're going to prove we can out-physical Michigan. And that's where ego became strategically expensive, because I'm not interested in proving I'm tougher than you. I'm interested in beating you. And if your best players are inside while my greatest advantages are outside, why am I repeatedly attacking your best players? Ohio State slowed the game down. They reduced the number of possessions, compressed the opportunity for its overall talent advantage to separate. And then within the smaller sample, repeatedly allocated opportunities towards Michigan's greatest strength. Meanwhile, Jeremiah Smith and Emeka are on the outside. They've got superior skill talent. They have the opportunity to attack vertically. And we've got players capable of forcing Michigan to redistribute their defensive resources and get guys out of the box, but we kept forcing it to the middle. Make Michigan solve those problems. Don't ask your players to validate your philosophy. Use your philosophy to maximize your players. And Ohio State loses the game 13-10. Michigan took it from them. Then after the game, something happened. Now, I wasn't in the room, so I'm not going to pretend I know exactly what was said. But there have been plenty of reports about conversations between players and Ryan Day, a player-only meeting with Coach Day in it, after that Michigan loss. And the story that's emerged in different forms is essentially this. Let us go play. Let's do what we do best. Get the football to the difference makers. Stop trying to force the game to look a particular way. Use our strengths. Feed the damn studs. Whatever was actually said in that room, I know what happened next because we all watched it. Ohio State became a different football team. First, it was Tennessee, 42-17 win, dominant game. Then Oregon, a team that had already beaten Ohio State earlier in the year, 41-21, another dominant performance. Then Texas, a 28-14 win, ultimately beating Notre Dame for the national championship, 34-23. 4 playoff games, 145 points, more than 36 points per game, and a national championship. That wasn't surviving the playoff. That was a historic run through it. And what stood out to me wasn't simply that Ohio State scored more points. It was how they attacked. They made their talent the problem for their opposition. They made defenses deal with Jeremiah Smith in multiple ways. They created opportunities for Emeka. They created opportunities for TreVeyon. They attacked vertically. They became aggressive. They used downhill gap schemes, way more than what they had earlier in the season with stretch. They stopped asking their players, their best players, to go out there and simply do cardio while you try to pound the ball between Mason Graham and Kenneth Grant. And that made the defenses have to start solving them. That's feeding the studs. And this also fits something that's been at the core of how I've thought about offensive football for a long time. Our offensive philosophy is MAPS: multiple, aggressive, physical, and sound. And there's one word I want to emphasize here: aggressive. Because having great players and protecting them from opportunities to be great makes absolutely no sense to me. I'll come back to that idea of protection a little later. But first, give them the tools, prepare them, and then let them go fucking play. That's what Ohio State did to start the playoff run. And then when they played Texas, the coaching staff showed me that they really got it. So this is where I think the coaching in that run became even better in that Texas game. Because feed the studs by itself can become stupid too. If feed the studs simply means throw Jeremiah Smith the ball no matter what, then eventually you're doing exactly the same thing Ohio State did against Michigan, right, in the rivalry game that year. You're forcing your method regardless of what the defense is telling you. Texas wasn't going to allow Jeremiah Smith to destroy them. They essentially said, number 4 isn't beating us. Ohio State still used Jeremiah Smith some, but they were going to take him away. And this is where I saw some of the best offensive coaching I've seen from Ohio State. Because Ohio State didn't say, well, feed the studs, throw it to him anyway, no matter what. They did a little. They listened to what the defense was telling them. Remember how this whole episode started. The defense is giving you information. So 3 times in the first half, Ohio State put Jeremiah Smith as the isolated X receiver in a 3-by-1 detached formation. And Texas had a corner, a home safety over the top, and a backside linebacker that focused his wall attention to that boundary side. So that's all 3 of them relating to him in coverage. Think about that. The defense made a choice to take their defensive resources, 3 of them, and apply that to 1 player. Their +2 is gone. Everywhere else on the field is a one-on-one matchup. That's information. And then right before halftime, Ohio State takes the answer. Smith is isolated away from the three receiver surface. Texas has committed those resources toward him. TreVeyon Henderson releases on a screen to the three receiver surface side. The offensive linemen get out, which now an extra couple blockers plus the one-on-one. Right? Ohio State is +2 now at the point of attack. Henderson catches it, and he's gone. Touchdown. Jeremiah Smith never touched the football on that play, and that's when feed the studs becomes something more sophisticated than force-feeding your best player. So feeding the studs doesn't always mean a particular guy gets the ball. Sometimes you have to establish a player as such a significant threat that the defense has to overcommit resources to stopping him. And Ohio State has a lot more studs than just one. And once they do, the gravity of that singular player feeds everybody else. Texas tried to take away Jeremiah Smith. Ohio State had the counterpunch. That's coaching. That's adaptation. That's taking the information the defense gives you and using it against them. And look at the contrast across this entire story. In 2016, against Michigan, I watched Ohio State receive information from a defense and seemingly refuse the answer. In 2024, against Michigan, I watched Ohio State repeatedly attack the strongest part of the defense, while its greatest personnel advantages existed elsewhere. But during that playoff run, they took the answers the defense gave them. They fed Jeremiah Smith until the defense changed. When the defense changed, they punished the change. That's offensive football. And that's as good as I've seen Ohio State coached offensively, which is exactly why what happened next frustrated me so much. Last year happened. Because after watching that playoff run, I thought, Ohio State's got it. Not a new offense, not some magical new playbook, a philosophy that makes your best players the feature. Be aggressive. Force defenses to solve your advantages. And when they commit resources to taking those advantages away, take the answer they give you. But then I watched last season, and increasingly I saw something different. Slow, methodical, protect your assets, minimize risk, boring football. And here's the thing. It worked against Texas. I thought it was a smart football plan against Texas, right? Talent was pretty equal. There are games where controlling the game is exactly what you should do. Remember, I'm not married to tempo. I'm not married to any method. If slowing the game down gives me the best chance to beat you this Saturday, I'll slow the damn thing down. But there's a difference between having a method available and having only one place you're comfortable in standing. That's where I think Ohio State got into trouble, because there's no such thing in life as low risk, high reward. Every choice has a cost. You can minimize variance, protect the football, protect your quarterback, shorten the game, but when you reduce risk, you frequently reduce opportunity with it. And when your roster possesses elite offensive talent, opportunity is the currency that allows talent to separate. Then Indiana happened, then Miami. And suddenly, you needed something different. You needed aggression, explosive, separation. You needed to turn the dial up. And it looked like Ohio State believed, we'll just turn it on a couple plays when we need it. I don't believe football works that way. Hell, I don't believe that human performance works that way, because even elite athletes are products of behavioral conditioning. You become what you repeatedly practice. If you spend week after week teaching your offense, control the game, approach it slow, take the safe answer, you can't suddenly arrive at the biggest moment of the season and say, okay, fellas, now go play with your hair on fire. That's not a play call. That's a behavior, and behaviors have to be trained. If you want your football team to be multiple on Saturday, you have to train them to be multiple on Monday through Friday. Slow when the situation calls for slow. Fast when it calls for fast. That's MAPS. Multiple aggressive physical sound. And this is what multiple actually means. It doesn't mean 400 plays. It means we have more than one way to beat you. And we've trained those ways enough that when the game demands a change, we're not becoming somebody different. We're just accessing something we've already become. That's the distinction. And that's why some of the same questions started coming back for me. Where's the aggression? Where's the intentional creation of opportunity? Are we controlling the game or helping the opponent keep it compressed? Are we protecting our assets or preventing those assets from becoming weapons? Are we making our best players the problem the defense has to solve? Or are we asking them to exist inside the offense, just running cardio and waiting for opportunities to arrive? And here's the weird statistical anomaly. In 2009, Urbana beat Dayton 13-10. We were the underdog. We intentionally shortened the game, compressed the possessions, kept it close, and stole it. In 2024, Michigan beat Ohio State 13-10. We shortened the game, and they took it. In 2025, Indiana beat Ohio State 13-10. We shortened the game, missed a field goal, didn't convert, and Indiana took it. 3 completely different games, same score. So maybe 13-10 is the score of this whole damn argument. Because when you compress the game, you compress the talent advantage with it. That's exactly what I wanted when we played Dayton at Urbana. I'm not sure why Ohio State should want to keep volunteering for the same fucking experiment. And that's why I'm talking about this now. Not because Ryan Day can't coach. That's ridiculous. The man won a national championship. He's elite at his job. And that playoff run contained some of the best offensive coaching I've seen at Ohio State. That's exactly why I want more of it. Because we've already seen what it can look like. So if I have one wish for Ryan Day and the Ohio State offense, it's really pretty simple. Make your players the feature. Prepare them to be aggressive. Give them answers. And trust the talent you've spent years recruiting and developing. If Jeremiah Smith forces the defense to commit 3 players to him, good. You've changed the defense without even snapping the football. Punish them somewhere else. And if they won't commit those resources, feed him until they do. Tempo's a tool. Power's a tool. Max protection is a tool. But none of them should be your core identity. Use the methods that you have available to attack the problem standing in front of you. Because that's what I think we watched happen after the Michigan game in 2024. Ohio State stopped trying to prove what it wanted to be and started forcing everybody else to deal with who they had to play against. And they became national champions. So that's my hope for this version of Ohio State in 2026. Don't protect your talent from the opportunity to be great. Feature it. Be aggressive enough to force the defense to react. Multiple enough to punish the reaction. And sound enough to execute the answer. Because if I've got better players than you, I want being better than you to fucking matter. Talent times opportunities creates production separation. And when you've got the dudes who can create the separation, you already know the answer. Feed the damn studs. I'm Dave Tainer. This is the 1-2 Tempo Us podcast. See you next time.